close your eyes, to breathe, and to soothe yourself, to allow yourself to feel what you're feeling and tell yourself everything's okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Worldwide. Wherever you are around the world, thank you so much for tuning in and for being here. There's always so much going on in our lives, so we appreciate that you're taking the time and that you're also sharing our episodes and sharing how you're doing and how you're feeling, because that's how we can line up the guests and the stories and the motivation and all of the help for you. All right, well, let's get right to today's topic and special guest. The topic is mindfulness, wherever you go, personally and professionally, because let's face it, life in general, as a person or a professional, throws you curveballs. So how do you stay mindful during challenging situations? Well, my special guest today has a lot to share on this topic. Joining me on the show is Michelle Enriquez, and she is a leading corporate mindfulness strategist. And Michelle works with a number of different professionals, and through these self-discovery sessions and mindfulness plans, ongoing accountability, and support, Michelle has counseled attorneys and lawyers, corporate managers, politicians, community leaders to bring mindfulness to their lives and their work. Rather than me going on and on about Michelle, I think it's time she shares her journey and advice with you. Michelle, welcome. Welcome to Women Worldwide.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so exciting, and I am so ready to dive into the topic of mindfulness.
Well, I'm really glad because life has thrown many curveballs over the last year or so. So mindfulness definitely is a practice that we want to dive into. Maybe you could just start off, because I always ask, how did you get to becoming a leading corporate mindfulness professional?
So, I've been involved in public affairs, government affairs, and in politics, local politics here in New York City. And in working with a lot of community leaders, I noticed there was a huge gap. I noticed that we were going through this thing where we're working every day, we are overwhelmed and we're stressed, and our leaders have so much on their plate, and they were dealing with so much pressure, and there was a huge gap of and awareness of just mental health, of being more aware, of being conscious of how to lead your community. And because I saw that gap and I saw that our leaders were suffering of that, and they were just taking all this stress back home, there wasn't any type of separation or work and home balance, right? No harmony. That's when I realized that I had to get into mindfulness, and we had to help our leaders be more intentional, be more mindful, so that we can have better leaders leading our society and our community. And from then, I went into NYU and I fell in love with mindfulness. I started practicing more, applying more. I even took programs, got certified in mindfulness as a meditational instructor. And that's when I started applying these techniques at work, in the office, with these politicians, with corporate leaders and community leaders. And I just truly fell in love with the mission and the purpose. And I saw that we could do so much more for our world with mindfulness.
That's amazing. I wonder, so you fell in love with mindfulness. Did the community leaders and the professionals and the politicians that you were working with, did they even recognize that they needed to be mindful? In other words, did they know that there was an issue there and a way, a journey, a path to be more aware and to help themselves, to help other people?
No, they were not aware. And I believe that the reason they weren't aware is because corporate culture and just culture in general here in New York City and everywhere really, business is just all about making money. It's fast paced. It's, the culture there, it's become so norm that executives and leaders, it's all about their agenda. We're not really thinking about being mindful, being intentional, and stress is seen as a medal of honor, really, right? The more stressed you
Right.
are, the more you have on your plate, the more that you're working. And when they are asked to kind of stop and think, for them, it's something brand new. So they are not aware, but thankfully some of them are open to receiving more of these alternative methods of dealing with stress.
That's really good, because when you think of leaders and in the context of business, they are making critical decisions for all of their stakeholders, internal and external, right? So
Yeah.
if you are a critical thinker making decisions, you really need to be present and mindful to help the people you serve. So I guess the question is, once they recognize that there is this different way of being mindful, what would be some first steps?
So I think the first step for any person, whether you're a professional or a leader, just in general, the first step is really recognizing that there are other ways and methods to help you, to support you, right? Life doesn't have to be this difficult. And once we become more aware and open to this support and just different ways, now we can be more open to saying, okay, well, maybe this habit that I have isn't serving a higher purpose, right? Isn't doing me any good. And this habit can probably be shifted or changed or just completely removed and adding something new. So being able to just be open minded and to welcome and receive something brand new, I think is the first step, is just making that internal shift to
Mhm.
be able to change the external reality of what's truly happening in life.
So that's interesting to note for everybody who is watching or listening, that no matter what your profession, what company you're in, role you have, this really does start with yourself personally in order for it to even be applied within the organization. Michelle, I'm going to ask you kind of a challenging question, because we've all been challenged over the last year or so, whether it's COVID. People deal with situations in companies like crisis. I know personally, grief and loss has been around myself and my family since 2018, and now recently my dad having passed. How do you stay mindful? It seems like it would be a lot easier when life is just flowing along and you can be mindful, but when you get these really tough situations, what do you do?
I believe that the first thing that we can all do is first tap into the power of breath, right? Breath is able to help us manage our nerves, to help us manage our thoughts. It helps us create an intentional pause in between and to just allow ourselves to feel what we are feeling. Many times during these situations that life throws at us, we tend to react and we get in shock and we panic. Then we get into this panic mode and it becomes a ripple effect where we kind of just become so nervous and fall into this hole of anxiety, right?
And then
Our
it's a
emotions
snowball,
become everywhere. Yes, it we
right?
go right, exactly. So breath, I think it's the first thing for us to do. And one of the things that I love to do with my clients is to close your eyes, to breathe, and to soothe yourself, to allow yourself to feel what you're feeling and tell yourself everything's okay, all is fine. I am healed, I am well. To give yourself these positive affirmations that will help you cope and manage. But breath work is really the secret, like as they say, the secret sauce to it all, because it helps you to pause and to think and to remind yourself, I am here, I'm present, I'm in the moment, and to grant yourself the grace to feel. Allow yourself to do that.
It's hard to do that. It is difficult to feel, to sit with an emotion. I mean, I think that this is not just a one and done. This is not something that you do once a week and think that you're going to master it. It's a lifestyle. That's what I'm gathering from what you're saying.
And to, right, and to add on to that, it's not going to be pretty, right? The journey of mindfulness, it's a lifestyle. You cannot read a book and then boom, you're mindful. That's not the way it works. It's as if you're exercising, it's a muscle that you have to strengthen, you have to develop. That's really what it is. So because it's something that we have to develop and we have to continue practicing every single day, every single moment, I always say, is an opportunity for us to create a mindful moment. Right now, we're speaking, becoming mindful, being present in how we're answering, what we're talking about, right? What's around me, my senses. Every single opportunity is that is a moment for us to be more mindful. So because it's a journey and it's a ongoing process, I always want to encourage people that you don't give up when things go tough, because it's going to happen. Always just rely on yourself, go inward for the answers, because you have all the results, all the answers you need, you have them inside. It's just a matter of tapping into that inner power, that inner wisdom, and allowing yourself to apply it to every single situation in life.
Yes, and you cannot tap into that inner wisdom. Sometimes I call it the inner GPS, your compass. When I just published a book, Answers for Ethical Marketers, and I talk about your inner ethics GPS. It's all inside, but I think sometimes we don't recognize that because of all the noise externally. It's easy to get distracted, and it's time to do a lot more tuning out to tune in. I did want to touch on the accountability part. So I had lined that up in the introduction to this show, saying that you sort of help with accountability and support. How can somebody be accountable? Is it a buddy system? Is it a check system? What can they do?
Yeah, well, the way that I work with my clients is that I create a personalized mindfulness plans, and I am able to put in strategies. So with these strategies, we measure and evaluate how far you've come. What have you done? What have you applied? What worked? What didn't work? And the reason I say this is because there is no one way for every single person. Whatever fits you might not fit me, because we have two different lifestyles, two different types of personalities. We're just two different people. And that's one of the things that I also would like our viewers to take away, to understand that it's okay if meditation probably doesn't work for you. Maybe you fall asleep during a meditation. That's okay.
That's
There's
my husband.
right. There's
At
different
night.
ways of meditating, movement meditation, even a workout, right? Movement. It's a way to connect mind, body, and spirit. There's so many different ways of being a mindful leader and professional. It's just a matter of figuring out what's the best solution and the best fit for you. Once you discover that, it's much easier to tap into that individual and personalized secret. It's like your secret recipe that only you can practice, and you know that it's going to help you during these difficult situations and every single day.
What are some of the outcomes or positive results that your clients have seen within their organizations when they know they're mindful personally? And then all of a sudden, what changes for them and their teams? Have they commented on how this makes them feel or how they can make others feel?
So usually mindfulness, what it does is that individually, it just makes you more aware, right? It helps you manage stress and overwhelm and all this pressure going on because you're a very busy professional. So once you have applied all these techniques and these methods in your personal life, right, with self in your development, what happens there is that you grant other people kind of like permission non-verbally to be able to be open, to be able to be themselves, to present themselves authentically. That you've also experienced this, and I have personally in business, that business culture, it's very difficult to present ourselves authentically, to be very transparent, because there's a certain way and a certain way of acting, of behaving, of speaking in a business setting, right? So
Absolutely.
being open and being energetic, and it's sometimes seen as, oh, that's not normal. That's even when you walk into the elevator and saying, hey, good morning, that's kind of weird, right?
Right.
So I feel that when a leader is modeling that and they're projecting this type of energy and being very mindful and intentional and compassionate with others,
Mm.
by leading that way and modeling this way of culture, right? You are allowing others to do the same. And it becomes a ripple effect. And then other people, it's contagious. This emotion, this energy is so contagious that then this little team is that mindful team where we are supporting each other, mind, body, and that is what I've seen with teams that I've worked with executives, that once they have aligned themselves with who they truly are, I always say it's the highest form of self. They are able to not only renew their life and their mind, but the lives of others. So that's
Wow,
really what I've seen.
that is wonderful. I like that there is a ripple effect. We throw around the word authenticity, be authentic. You just gave a path to get there. And just the fact that it's not saying, I'm authentic, I'm transparent, I'm vulnerable, I'm human, I'm present, I'm aware. No, it's showing it. And when you start showing it, people pick up on it. And believe it or not, there's mirroring that goes on with your colleagues, especially colleagues you're working with, more than 8 hours a day in some cases. So this is all really helpful. Maybe you can share one of your big aha moments.
So my biggest aha moment is really what created that shift within me. I've always been in love with politics, and it's because I've loved the idea that individuals are able to change a community, right? Individuals are able to provide resources to underprivileged communities. And because I fell in love with that industry, really, um, I also felt that there was a big duty of mine, a responsibility for me to say something and step up and show up and start talking more about how leaders need to be more mindful. And in this industry, when I saw that leaders were going back home, taking work home, being stressed, not being able to really embrace family, not able to be present 100%, and allowing everything else to come second and work first, stress to kind of just overwhelm the entire life. That's when I realized my aha moment was that there's a universal issue that we're all going through. It doesn't matter what profession, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter where you come from.
Mhm.
All of that does not matter. As humans, we all deal with stress, with overwhelm and pressure. And if we do not know how to manage that, our whole world is goes upside down, right? And that's when we start reacting instead of proacting. And that was really my aha moment.
Now, that's quite a moment. I often wonder, right now we're on Zoom having this lovely discussion. We're using technology, it is helping us. Social media is really good for community. It can be, right? There's positive with social media, but at the same time, how mindful can you be if you're always on social media? What would you say to professionals out there, people in general?
The funny thing is that we're addicted to our phones. I don't go anywhere without my phone. My kids too, their devices.
Right.
So it's sad that we have become this type of culture where depend on these devices. However, there's always an opportunity to learn. There's always an opportunity to be mindful. We can use these devices to be more mindful. For example, take your phone and put alarms every hour to just take an intentional breath,
Mm,
right?
good.
Take some time to play some music to remind yourself. It's a matter of how we perceive things. If we are able to use these for a greater good, to be able to even reach more people, to teach them more about mindfulness, how to be intentional and better, just conscious human beings. If we're able to use this for good, there's always an opportunity to be mindful there. And as I gave you the example, putting alarms, setting the alarm, sometimes what I have to do is I remove my phone and I put it in another room and I put an alarm. Once I hear it, I just go back and get it, right? So there are opportunities. It's just a matter of how we set ourselves up for success.
Absolutely. I mean, there's apps to help you meditate and to breathe. So
Right.
that is technology for good. I live by the Google Calendar, carving out time for things that are important, right? And setting up alerts so
Yes.
that, if you have to schedule time to read or meditate or be with family, whatever it is, I find that that helps too. So I like that you said that you can use technology for good, which also says it's a choice. If you want to be all consumed in your communities or on the news, and granted, I'm a public relations professional. I'm very much
Mhm.
about the news because I do the media training, but I still limit intake and try not to spend hours doing that because then you couldn't be mindful.
Mhm.
So I agree with everything that you're saying. How do you stay up on everything that you know about mindfulness for your clients to bring them the latest and the freshest and the best techniques?
I am a student of life. That's really, I am just here to guide people, and really the answers and the professionals, it's them, it's the people, it's you. I'm just here to guide you. And what I do is that I'm always um, in courses, I'm always getting certifications, I'm doing research. I am always just a sponge that absorbs it. And I see myself as a vehicle of this light, right? Of this information, who is willing to talk about it publicly, because that's the other thing. A lot of people, we're not, I haven't seen that a lot of people are open
Mm,
to talk much about this. It hasn't become such a normal part of business, right? That integration yet. But
yes.
little by little, yeah, right. But little by little, there are programs. For example, I'm in this program called Inner MBA with NYU. It's a 9-month course where we get certified for simply that, being more mindful and going into corporations to talk more about this, to make it more normal, right? As part of the culture. So there are so many things that I do. I read books, do research, I allow myself to learn because I don't know it all. But I
Right,
do allow myself to meet people who know more than me, who have come before me and have been teaching this for years. We just haven't heard them, probably, right? Because
right.
we haven't been open to it. But now that we are, I've always allowed myself to learn, even from my experiences. I always apply what I teach. And even if it doesn't work for me, I know it works for other people. It's just a matter of being open to receiving more information and allowing myself to offer that back to the world, really.
That's great. You are open and you are clearly a lifelong learner. And shout out to NYU for the programs that they are offering. That's I'm a big fan of NYU. I taught there back in the day, and as you know, so I think it's really
Yes.
great progressive courses in areas that really need to be tapped and brought into organizations. Excellent. Well, I can't even believe that I'm going to ask you for parting advice. You've shared a lot of advice, but what do you want to leave our listeners and our viewers with today?
I think that the takeaway for everyone here viewing this video is that to become more mindful of breath. One of the things that I always tell people is that we can live without water for a bit. We can live without food for a bit, but without breath, we cannot. And being mindful of our breath and learning how to breathe appropriately, because there is a certain way of breathing that can help us manage and just to calm our nerves. Once we are able to tap into the power of breath, we are able to manage so many things in life and even to help us cope with the hardest moments in life, right? So, breath is the first thing that I would like people to become more aware of. And the second thing is just taking 5 minutes of your day to sit, to be, and to exist, right? Allowing yourself to that, granting yourself permission to just sit and breathe, becoming aware of your senses, of what's around you, what you're smelling. How does it feel to sit? How does it feel? How does the wind feel to kind of just go and blow by your hair? These are simple tips that people might see as normal, but once we start thinking about it, we don't really do this intentionally. We don't really stop
Oh,
and smell the air, just the unique smell of the wind passing by. I think it's a beautiful thing for us to become more mindful so that we could live a more purposeful, meaningful, and a more present lifestyle.
well, I love that. And I'm all for this. So thank you so much. Just last question, super easy. Where can people find out more about you and your work?
If you would love to work with me and if you would like to have more information about me, please visit www.michellenriquez.com or email me at info@michellenriquez.com.
Excellent. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your journey and really breaking down mindfulness personally and bringing it into the company. I think you've really helped with a roadmap today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an amazing talk. We had a great conversation. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you. And thanks to all of you who tuned in today. Please keep the conversations going and the feedback coming. You know where you can find me? I'm always on Twitter @Dee Breckenridge, and connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to send me an email, please do. It's Deirdre@pureperformancecom with 2Ms.com. Okay, friends. Well, be well, and as I always say, stay focused, energized, and feeling empowered. Thank you.